Hi, welcome back to my channel. You asked for it, and here it is, inspiring stories of reconciliation with parents and adult children. If you're facing similar situations, these stories and strategies might offer hope and guidance. By the way, of course, my client's confidentiality is protected and things have been changed. The first step is self-reflection and accountability. Many reconcilers took this step of self-reflection and accountability. They looked inward, they examined their actions and behaviors that might have contributed to the estrangement. By acknowledging their mistakes and taking responsibility, they paved the way for genuine apologies and showed willingness to change. And that's what adult children are saying. I just want my parent to take responsibility. This self-awareness was crucial in opening the door to reconciliation. A few years ago, a dad called me to let me know that he was just beside himself because his daughter picked up, and they were very close, after not leaving a forwarding address. And what happened was he had set a boundary and the daughter wasn't having it. And so things got really bad. The relationship fell into no contact. The two of us worked together and we started reflecting what on earth was going on with your daughter and what were the boundaries and all of that. And we worked together doing the self-reflection, learning what to do and not to do, focusing on self-care and especially respecting his daughter's boundaries. And a few years passed and the daughter reached out and dad used his skills, his newfound skills of not asking too many personal questions, which we discovered came from a place of being sincerely worried, except he was kind of nagging her. And he took responsibility for his part of the relationship breakdown. The dad simply said he was sorry. He apologized for basically chasing and treating his daughter like a child by asking a lot of questions. And in this question, it was this inference that she didn't know how to take care of herself. And that's the classic case of not respecting the adult child. And by the way, the adult child did have a diagnosis and the parent was quite worried about this. But anyway, the great news is that they are back in touch. The dad learned the skills of what to do, not to do, how to speak. And the relationship isn't exactly what he would want. But the last time I spoke to him, he told me it is 100% better than it used to be. They now are able to have conversations. And what he did was he met her where he was at. He took responsibility for his part in the relationship breakdown. And the daughter was willing to receive a letter of amends. And their relationship is much better. Step 2, open and honest communication. Reconcilers emphasize the importance of open and honest communication. They reached out to their children with heartfelt letters or messages expressing their feelings without blame. They used I statements to convey their emotions and focused on their child's perspective. This approach helped to rebuild trust and create a foundation for meaningful dialogue. Okay. So here's an example of this. One of the families I worked with was heartbroken when their son moved away and refused to communicate. The son was still in contact with one of the parents, and he said he would be willing to do family work. Okay. And so we did 6 sessions where mom and dad could do the self-reflection, take responsibility for what their son had shared with us during the work that we did together. The parents did their part in listening. They wrote a carefully designed letter of amends, which they learned how to do in our sessions. And they discussed boundaries and how to have a forward-facing relationship. They're now practicing these skills, better communication, and enjoying their relationship. This third step is accessing professional help. So many reconcilers sought professional help. They got the family coaching or the family therapy. They got this third party, okay? It provided a safe space for everyone, for their feelings to come out and to talk about it. Therapists help them to uncover some underlying issues, especially about communication and boundaries that were impacting the way that they related. All right, so one of my clients was completely broken about not seeing her grandchildren when she contacted me. The focus of her entire world were these grandchildren. And not seeing them prompted her, and I mean, she literally got physically ill. And we worked together, uncovering many patterns and issues that were instrumental in her daughter's need to leave. And it took some time for her daughter to be willing to work with me, okay? When her daughter began to work with me, I did see her privately for some time, and I did see them together. And what happened was they reviewed individually the things that were upsetting, particularly the daughter. The mom took the responsibility, and the daughter felt seen and heard. This is the language they use. I know that you're seeing me. I know that you're acknowledging me. Obviously, I've only given you a snippet of what was going on with this family, but the therapy, the coaching really did make a difference for them. The fourth thing that reconcilers did was that they respected boundaries. And when that happens, there's an understanding that pushing too hard can further strain the relationship. So they allowed their children the space and need to process their needs. By showing patience and understanding, what they did was demonstrate that they were willing to support their adult child's decision. All right, so before the cutoff, my client's son had pulled away a bit. Okay, there was some things that had happened. They used to be very close, and then little by little, the relationship began to erode. Over time, this created a lot of distress for the dad, and he became desperate once the son was hardly contacting anymore to engage in conversations with him, and the adult child wasn't having it. He asked his son to come over to take stuff that belonged to him when he was a kid. He wrote a letter of apology, but it had a lot of defensiveness in it. He contacted way too much. He really wasn't respecting that his son needed space. Fast forward, the dad reaches out to me and we work together, and he learned how to process his grief. He learned what to do and what not to do. And a lot of what he learned was that the fact that he was pushing so much had to do with his need because of his anxiety about the relationship. He learned that the pushing really strained the relationship further than it needed to go. So with my help, Dad wrote a simple, heartfelt message, and he expressed his love, apologized for any past hurts, apologized for having pressured his son, and he said things like, "Take all the time you need. I'm here whenever you're ready to talk." Months passed without a response, but this dad remained patient. He worked on his own growth. He did things like go to the gym. He wrote in his journal, and he prioritized being around friends because before that he had started isolating. Most importantly, he learned how to manage his emotions and stay true to not pushing and respecting his son's boundaries and need for space. So after several months, Dad received a text from his son thanking him for the apology, and he wasn't ready to talk yet, but that sometime in the future he'd want to join his dad in therapy. Thankfully, in time, the son began sending texts every so often, and Dad's responses were simple and non-pressuring. He was ready and willing to do family repair with his dad. And we learned during our time together that the son explained he felt his dad had given him the time without the pressure, and this helped him to feel supported and made it easier for him to want to talk and do the repair work. The son also explained that he felt his dad had respected his boundaries. After we engaged in work together, both learned how to resolve conflict, how to better communicate. And the dad basically learned how to get his hands off the wheel, to be there for his son. In time, they did meet in person. We did our work on Zoom. and they're beginning their relationship together. The bond isn't the same. However, it's much stronger than it was, and it's built on this mutual respect and patience that help the son to heal. Step 5, consistent effort and patience. Healing estrangement requires consistent effort and definitely lots of patience because it's a marathon, not a sprint, okay? Reconcilers did make small gestures and they were committed to rebuild the relationship. They understood that reconciliation is a process and they were prepared for setbacks because they can be, but they persevered and slowly they rebuilt their connection with their adult child. So this mom was estranged from her son after a fracture of years of misunderstanding and hurtful words. During our time together, she learned how to write a letter of amends that wouldn't make it more complicated by adding a lot of defensiveness in it. She processed her grief and she definitely learned how to do self-care. But she began sending, because she didn't get a no contact stated, all right, she began sending regular handwritten notes. I'm here for you whenever you're starting. I'm just thinking of you. I hope you're okay. Nothing intrusive. She knew not to expect an immediate response, okay? She continued sending these occasional notes, sharing memories from their time together, from his childhood, updating him on her life. Each message was brief, okay, unintrusive. Well, she contacted me a few months ago to tell me that she continued to reach out regularly, but there was no response at first. She reported that it took a lot of strength on her part to stay the course of not confronting to him, like saying something like, "What's up with you? How come you're not calling me back?" She didn't do that, okay? Instead, she focused on being patient. We discussed this when we had our time to get together, which is definitely vital. One day her son responded to one of her texts. He just said, "Thank you." And these are the small things that parents need to hold on to. These small gestures, you may get crickets, but when they do respond, you want to just look at that and say, this is good. This is really good. So their relationship is still a bit fragile. I'll be honest with you. It's not the best. However, she does get this kind of every once in a while, some contact. It makes her feel much better because she's not completely on the outs with her son anymore. In essence, a lot of what had happened that kind of precipitated the estrangement was this communication thing. It was the way that they spoke with them. Mom did a lot of work. We reviewed a lot of communication skills, how to hear without getting defensive, how to use I statements. And it was these communication skills that she continues to use, which are helping keep the door open as opposed to, again, re-injuring the relationship. Because that's basically what you want to do. You want to learn things so that when they come back, because they do, some of them do. We know from research that adult children soften in time when there hasn't been this horrific abuse that some of them are stating. They do want to come back. And sometimes there has been things that have been really horrible, but they still want to be in relationships. So your learning things will make it a lot easier when they do come back. If they do. In some cases, they don't, and I am sorry about that. But for those that do, learning these skills is extremely helpful. Step 6 is focus on self-care. So these reconcilers focused on doing things that said they mattered, okay? They were cognizant of the stress on their physical and mental health, and they knew that these challenges would require really taking up their self-care to a higher level, okay? The ups and downs of the reconciliation process and the estrangement condition requires us to really take care of ourselves. So one of my clients was estranged from both her son and daughter, and this case involved parental alienation as well as having a traumatic childhood. Our work together uncovered a lot of challenging dynamics. and her personalized estrangement coaching, we developed a strategy that included letters of amends to her children. So her son didn't want to contact her and still to this date is not speaking to her. But what's important to note is that after years of accumulated stress, this mom had just run herself to the ground, abandoning her self-care. We worked on this strategy for her self-care. My last contact with her, she was feeling stronger and found it so much more easier to deal with these challenges of the continued estrangement with her son. She told me recently that her conversations with her daughter are still not as often as she would like, but she has this defined strategy of how to manage the grief. She knows what to do. She's been focusing on taking care of herself. Reconciliation is a journey that requires time, patience, and effort. By following these steps, many of the reconcilers have successfully mended their relationships with their adult children. It may not be exactly what they wanted, but they still are in contact. Some of them are having a better relationship than they had before. Remember, you're not alone on this journey, and we're here to support you every step of the way. Don't forget to subscribe and leave me a comment. And by the way, I have a free ebook, Feeling Heartbroken and Alone, How to Pick Up the Pieces When You're Estranged. See you in the next video.